Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we'll be diving deep into the story of one of history's most powerful and controversial figures, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. His life was a whirlwind of conquest, innovation, and an obsessive quest for immortality. It's a story so epic, it sounds like it's straight out of a fantasy novel. So grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let us unravel the tale of the man who unified a nation and left behind a legacy that still echoes through the ages. Our story begins in 259 BC with a boy named Ying Zhang. He wasn't born into a peaceful palace. He was born in the state of Zhao, a rival to his home state of Qin. This was the Warring States period, a chaotic time when China was fractured into 7 major kingdoms, all constantly fighting for supremacy. Ying Zhang's early life was marked by danger and political intrigue. His own father was a royal hostage in Zhao, and young Zhang lived under constant threat. This tough upbringing likely forged the ruthless determination that would define his reign. At just 13 years old, Ying Zhang ascended the throne of Qin. Of course, a teenager couldn't rule alone. For the first several years, the real power was held by his prime minister, Lu Buwei, a cunning merchant who had helped his father become king. Some historical texts even whisper that Lu Buwei might have been Ying Zhang's biological father, though that's a debate for another day. As Ying Zhang grew into a man, he grew tired of being a puppet. In a dramatic power play, he stripped Lu Buwei of his titles and exiled him. He also uncovered a plot by his own mother and her lover, had them dealt with mercilessly, and consolidated all power for himself. The young king was now in full control, and he had a singular, audacious goal: to conquer all the other states and unite China under his rule. With absolute authority, Ying Zhang unleashed the full might of the Qin military machine. The state of Qin had a major advantage. Its government was based on a philosophy called legalism, which emphasized strict laws, military strength, and agricultural production above all else. This created a highly efficient and disciplined society geared for war. One by one, the other states fell. From 232 to 21 BC, in a series of brilliant and brutal campaigns, Qin armies swept across the land. The state of Han was the first to fall, followed by Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, and finally, Qi. In just under a decade, Ying Zhang had achieved the impossible. He had ended centuries of division and warfare. Standing victorious, he declared himself Qin Shi Huang, which means first sovereign emperor of Qin. He wasn't just a king anymore. He was an emperor, a title he created to signify his supreme status. Now, conquering China was one thing, but ruling it was another. How do you govern a vast, newly formed empire of diverse peoples who had been enemies for generations? Qin Shi Huang's answer was standardization. He understood that to create a single, unified Chinese identity, everyone needed to be on the same page. First, he standardized the writing system. Before, each state had its own script, making communication difficult. The emperor enforced a single, universal script that could be read by officials across the empire. This was a monumental step in creating a shared culture and bureaucracy. Next came currency. He abolished the various coins used by the old states and introduced a single, round copper coin with a square hole in the middle. This made trade and taxation far simpler and more efficient. He didn't stop there. He standardized weights and measures, ensuring that a pound of rice in the north was the same as a pound of rice in the south. He even standardized the axle widths of carts. Y, so that all carts would fit into the same ruts on the new, empire-wide road system he was building. This network of roads, over 1,000 miles long, connected the capital to the farthest reaches of his domain, allowing for a rapid movement of troops, officials, and goods. Perhaps his most famous and ambitious project was the Great Wall. Now, it wasn't the stone wall we see today that was mostly built during the Ming Dynasty centuries later. Qin Shi Huang's wall was made primarily of rammed earth. He connected existing defensive walls from the old northern states to create a massive barrier against nomadic tribes from the north, particularly the Xiongnu. This project was a colossal undertaking, costing countless lives and immense resources. It stands as a powerful symbol of his ambition to protect and define the borders of his new empire. But Qin Shi Huang's reign had a dark side. His legalist philosophy meant he ruled with an iron fist. He saw other schools of thought, like Confucianism, as a threat to his absolute authority. In 13 BC, to stamp out intellectual dissent, he ordered the infamous burning of the books. All books on philosophy, history, and literature from other states were to be destroyed. Only texts on medicine, agriculture, and divination were spared. A year later, according to the historian Sima Jin, he allegedly had over 460 scholars buried alive for defying his orders. This act cemented his reputation as a ruthless tyrant and was a devastating blow to China's intellectual heritage. As he grew older, the emperor who had conquered the world became obsessed with conquering death itself. He was terrified of dying and desperately sought the elixir of life. He sent expeditions far and wide in search of legendary immortals who held the secret to eternal life. One famous expedition, led by a sorcerer named Zufu, set sail into the eastern seas with hundreds of young boys and girls, searching for the mythical island of Penglai. They never returned. The emperor also consumed various potions and pills, many of which ironically contained mercury, a toxic substance that likely hastened his decline and contributed to his paranoia. Realizing that immortality might be out of reach, Qin Shi Huang began planning for the afterlife on an unimaginable scale. He commissioned a massive mausoleum near modern-day Xi'an, a subterranean palace to house him in death. For decades, hundreds of thousands of laborers worked on this secret project. And guarding this tomb was his silent, underground army, the Terracotta Warriors. Discovered by farmers in 1974, this incredible archaeological find revealed thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, archers, and cavalry, each with a unique face, all arranged in battle formation. They were built to protect the emperor in the afterlife, a testament to his power even beyond the grave. The central tomb itself has never been opened, but ancient texts describe it as a replica of his empire, with rivers of flowing mercury and a ceiling depicting the heavens. In 10 BC, at the age of 49, Qin Shi Huang died while on a tour of his eastern empire. His death was kept secret by his most trusted advisors, including the powerful eunuch Zhao Gao and his prime minister Li Si. Fearing that news of his death would trigger a rebellion, they concealed his body in a carriage and brought it back to the capital, supposedly using carts of salted fish to mask the smell of decomposition. In a final act of treachery, they forged the emperor's will, forcing his capable eldest son, Fushu, to commit suicide and installing his younger, more pliable son, Hahai, as the second emperor. The Qin dynasty, built on the sheer force of one man's will, did not last long without him. The second emperor was weak and ineffective, controlled entirely by Zhao Gao. The harsh laws and heavy taxes that held the empire together under Qin Shi Huang sparked widespread rebellion. Within just 4 years of the first emperor's death, the dynasty collapsed. A rebel leader named Liu Bang would eventually rise from the chaos, founding the Han dynasty, which would go on to rule China for over 400 years, building upon the foundations that Qin Shi Huang had laid. So, what is Qin Shi Huang's legacy? Was he a visionary hero who forged a nation, or a cruel tyrant who oppressed his people? The truth, as it often is, lies somewhere in the middle. He was a ruthless unifier. His methods were brutal, but they ended a period of bloody chaos, and created the concept of a unified China that persists to this day. His standardizations in writing, currency, and law laid the groundwork for a Chinese civilization for millennia. Yet, his tyranny, the book burning, and the immense human cost of his projects cast a long, dark shadow. He is a figure of immense complexity, a man whose ambition was as vast as the empire he created. His story is a powerful reminder that history is rarely black and white. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts on Qin Shi Huang in the comments below. Was his cruelty a necessary price for unification? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.